Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, everybody. I am back once again, Priscilla here. How are you doing today? It's been a very interesting period. Lockdown is being lifted completely. I say completely, almost near completely. Um, on the 4th of July, I say almost near because at least we can all go and get a haircut for those of us that need the haircuts, for those of us that need to get out there and, for non-essential shops, outdoor gyms, things like that are going to be available again for us from the 4th. So anyway, let me just give everybody some time to kind of tune in, get with me. So if you're wondering where else to watch it, you can catch me on YouTube as well. I'm live on my YouTube channel right now, so please tune in. Oh, and I'm learning how to do this too. So not only should you tune in, but like and share, please. It would be great to, but more than anything else tonight, I really want to know what you think about what's going on. Because as I said in my post earlier, my guest today is you. It's you and I that are going to be doing the show together. And it's just a question of, you know, lockdown started for all of us on the 23rd of March, 2020. And initially, it seemed like we were just going to have this lockdown, maybe for 2 weeks. As we try to control the virus or bring it under control, as it were. But 2 weeks was extended um, to for another 21 days, and another 21 days was extended. But we have started to see some lifting as we came into the month of June. And when the lifting started, the initial uproar was about the fact that children could go back to school. And a lot of families have been so concerned about the fact that the little ones should be sent back, be the ones that are going back to school. Um, Government's advice was that little ones going back to school, they're the ones being sent back to school because they are less likely to be as ill and to catch the virus in the same way, or the virus is less likely to be as deadly in them as we have seen in, say, the older generation or those that have underlying medical conditions. So the children were said to be the initial ones to go back to school. So I want to hear from you today. How did you feel about that? Are you comfortable with the children going back to school? Are you comfortable with the measures so far where, we've had a situation where it's been lifted to an extent? Unfortunately, we are seeing in a place like Leicester, for instance. Leicester right now has gone back into lockdown again. There are concerns as at today or so or yesterday's reports that the East Midlands, places like Bradford, may see um, an increase in lockdown. Localized lockdown is what we're likely to see. So I want to know from you. We're opening up. You can now travel, but when you're traveling, please be sure to wear your mask. How do you feel about that? Are you comfortable going out? I know at least I know at least three people that I communicate with on a very regular basis. They're dear to my heart, and before they step out of the door, it's a problem. Are you having anxiety? Are you anxious? They tend to be quite anxious before stepping out the door. When they get outside, they tend to be, somewhat fidgety. They're very conscious of their environment, conscious of people who are coming too close into their space. How are you feeling about that? Are you comfortable stepping out, putting on your mask and going out? Are you going out in a safe way? Or are you, uh, you know, so for me personally, for instance, I have struggled to breathe through the mask. I have issues with hay fever, so I can't. My breathing is already, if you like, somewhat of a challenge, especially in this hay fever season. So I struggle wearing the mask. I struggle to breathe properly doing that. So I try to avoid, I have ensured that I try to avoid, if I'm going out, to go to, for instance, on public transport where I'm required to wear a mask. So I've avoided that. I will sooner sort of just put my scarf around my face and go, but then that's not sufficient. So that's me. I am doing that to be able to step out, but I know people who are struggling just to do that alone. It's an issue for them. So I want to know from you today, how are you coping with it all? How are you taking it all in? What are your concerns now that this is being lifted? Are you excited to go back to life as, whatever it may be now, semi-normal, near normal? Um, are you comfortable with that now? Are you excited to do that? Are you concerned? Are you having anxiety? Just talk to me. Let's talk about how we're all feeling, because I think it's important that once in a while, I sort of come on and for us to, let's just talk about what we're feeling, and perhaps together we can try and work out how to deal with it, how to cope. And I think it's also good to know that you're not going through it on your own, for instance, but there are other people who share the same, um, you know, who are sharing the same feeling that you are sharing, and are therefore thinking to themselves, wow, can I, do this? How do I cope with life now going forward? That's the other key thing. So I want to know from you, are you super excited to step out? Are you thinking this is, or do you feel like some people feel? There are people out there who just feel as though my life has been ruined. They can't see how, stepping out the door, it's traumatic. It's how do I do this? Number one, for some people, there are issues with their jobs. They can no longer go back to the jobs that they knew. For some people, it means working from home a lot more. And I know that working from home doesn't work very well for everybody. It's great for some people, but it's not for everybody. So how are you feeling about that? How are you, taking that on board? Are you feeling that, I should just step out there? I'm ready to take it on. Let me get going. Let me just, are you taking the bull by the horn and just being brave about it? And just saying, well, we've got to do what we've got to do. Let me just go out there. Really good to know what your thoughts are, and how you're feeling about the whole situation. Um, I know it's not, how do I put it? It's not easy for any of us at the moment to sort of just pick up ourselves and say, right, I'm off. Let me get going. But what are you thinking about that? So anyway, so we had the whole situation, on the 11th of June, where, we had, as I said, the Prime Minister said we could start, going back to semi-normal. The non-essential shops were now opening up, and we could attend. We could start going to buy clothes, for instance. We all saw the queues and what was happening in. We all saw the queues and what was going on and what was going on in Primark, for instance, and the number of people that were just queuing to get in. And so, I just want to know. And churches also, AB is saying to me, AB says, I think for me, I just want church to be reopened. There are so many people, I forgot to mention about the church part, when I was rambling earlier. There are so many people that actually do want to get back to church. But then the new rules now are that, no more than 30. And you have to be able to, ensure that, it is safe. So let me ask you, AB, how would you ensure the safety in church, for instance, for congregants that are coming in? What should the church be doing to make sure that people are safe? Because I can imagine that just as you would like church to be reopened, there are so many people who are eager to want to also get back to their various churches. I'm thinking about those mega churches, those huge churches that we have that sit thousands of people at a time, because in order to provide some kind of security, they would have to separate how they sit people. It can no longer be that people sit as close together as what you normally do. So I'm just wondering, for you, AB, what would it mean in a church? Is your church preparing? Do you know if your church is preparing at the moment to say, right, we're going to go back on the 4th of July, from the 5th of July, because the 4th of July is a Saturday. We're going to go back. And then when we go back, this is what we're going to do. We're going to sit people one seat apart. Because the Prime Minister is also saying that if you cannot do a 2 meter social distancing, you should try to do a 1 meter. In a situation where you can't do the 2 meter. So, are we all going to be walking around with, rulers now or something to ensure that we've got, that the meters out there? I really want to know what you guys are all thinking and how you're preparing for this. Lady Yemi is saying that I'm not excited at all. What has changed? We only reopen at our own risk. Now, I hear you there, because if we're considering what's happening in Leicester, then should we be fearful then and not attempt to step out at all? Because in the East Midlands, from what they're telling us, 10% of all new cases are coming predominantly from that region of the country. And if that is the case, then and what they're now doing, what the government is doing now, is imposing localized lockdown. Matt Hancock, our Minister for Health, is now saying we have to do this legally. So they're now going to, he says there will be laws in place within a few days to be able to make sure that it's done. It has a legal framework to support the lockdown, the localized lockdown. And if that's the case, there was a Sky News report today, I think it was, also saying that the government are considering, just a matter of days now, when they will increase that. They're going to step it up, not just for Leicester, but for some of the other surrounding areas in the East Midlands. So what do we do? The 4th of July is so nearby. And I know so many people, we have seen the hunger for people wanting to be out. When we had the few days of sunshine, we saw how many people rushed out to the beach. It's interesting because they feel some of them feel it's unsafe for their children to be in school, but they didn't think being at the beach was as unsafe. No doubt they probably thought they were the only ones who were going, but then, a few thousands of other people had the same idea of being at the beach, and so they turned up. So, it would be great to know. AB says we've been planning to comply with the government's directives. Okay, that's fantastic. That's really good to know. That's really good to know. But does that mean you're going to hold more services on a Sunday? Because obviously, with the government's directive, it means that if we say, for instance, you were able to have, if your church is made up of 200 people and your building is not as big, what do you do in that situation? Do you then plan a second service so as to be able to accommodate more people, or are you thinking maybe we should continue more services online, to until you can truly work out, or until it sort of shifts? Is it premature to go back to church so soon? Because I know for a lot of people, especially within the Black community, church is church is integral. It's what we do on a regular basis. It's part of our it's how we do life. So going to church on a Sunday is so regular, and on a weekday. But then the question is, if you're then not able to accommodate people in the building at that time, would that then mean an extra cost? Because if you have to have a double service within the building so as to accommodate all your members, then what happens there? Will it affect the rental? Will it affect, your finances? Very, very key point there that I'm just thinking about how that's going to happen. But let me know, like I said, now some of the areas that they're saying we're being told is going to, that is going to reopen from the 4th of July. Outdoor gyms are going to be back. The playgrounds are going to be opening. Cinemas, museums, galleries, theme parks, and arcades are going to be opened. Now, for instance, we can't did I give you the yes, those are going to be reopened. Pubs and restaurants are going to be reopened again. But of course, so some restaurateurs are very concerned because, for them, reopening the restaurant means they have to reduce the number of tables. And in order for them to make money is dependent on how many clients Hi guys. So sorry about the radio silence there. Technology is amazing, as you know, especially when we're all using the internet at the same time. It will simply just disappear on you. So, but I'm back, and I hope that you're still staying with me. So, just going back to what I was saying, but before I do that, Candy says it is premature to be in groups. Period. We really should take time to access the coming out carefully. All these places can be opened, but we, the individuals, should be careful and not rush in mindlessly. I think that's fair advice, not to rush in mindlessly. Taking care is especially important, I think, that as you take care of yourself, be mindful of others, be considerate of others, and how they are likely to be affected by your presence, being out there. You know, it's we just can't we're not winning at the moment because really and truly we can't. I am thinking on a daily basis. I'm constantly thinking, wow. Every time I speak to somebody and I hear their story, I'm constantly thinking, wow, what are we going to do? What's coming? With regards to the number of people that have lost their jobs, the number of people that have to reconsider how they work. I mean, working from home right now seems wonderful and is great. But 6 months, 6 months down the line or a year down the line, are we still going to feel the same way about it? Are we going to have a lot more people? Because obviously, the walk-in for some getting to the station or walking to work or going out for lunch and all of those things helped somewhat contributed to a better health. But then if you're working from home, you find that as time goes on and you do that a lot more, it becomes more of an issue. So are we going to have the downside to that, which is, it could have a greater impact on our health? Are you thinking about that? And how do you feel? Like I said, it sounds so great now to do that, but are we thinking about the likely aftermath of that? Before I disappeared for a moment there, my momentary disappearance. As I was saying, I was hit, as I've spoken about many times. So during those initial periods of the lockdown, it seemed like I wasn't thinking about it. Obviously, I was just thinking, how does one get well? But once I got well, I recall some very, very interesting feelings. The first day I stepped out, I remember stepping outside my door and just breathing in the air and just thinking, wow, this is beautiful. And all of a sudden, I was more appreciative of being able to go out. Just think, we've been doing it without thought for so long. But suddenly, I was appreciative of the fact that I could go out. That was the first day I stepped out. So I did that. I came home, and I started planning the next day that I'm going to step out. After that, with so much joy and excitement, and I just thought, wow, how could I be so excited just because I'm going to step out of my house? I mean, this is something that once upon a time I've had conversations with myself, like, you're paying to live in this house, but then you spend so much money paying to live in the house and you spend so much time being out. How does that work? But suddenly I was staying in my house, and I was excited to be able to step out. So I started calling it prison. So anyway, moving forward, I did begin to get out for the exercise, my government permitted exercise. I was out there doing it as much as I could, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And since then, I've sort of appreciated being able to go out. But whilst I was home, just like we all were, when I heard the numbers that were being announced of those who were dying, I was so angry on a daily basis for a period. I just couldn't, it just became so traumatic for me to listen to the number of people that, were going. And then one day I just sort of asked myself the question. The question popped into my head and said, how many people would normally die on any given day in the UK? And I went to check that on the Office of National Statistics website, and I saw the figures. And when I saw the figures, that just sort of gave me a bit of calm to say, okay, yes, there are a lot of people dying, but previously on any given day, this same number of people you know, or this a number close to this would have probably died also on any given day, car accidents, natural causes, murder, whatever. Um, None of it are acceptable, by the way, but it is what happens. So that sort of kind of helped me to cope with the numbers that I was seeing and all of that. So that was step number one, to kind of keep my mental health in order. So I want to know, how are you keeping your mental health in order? Are you finding it extremely challenging? As it is now, the lockdown is partially lifted, but I have noticed. I don't know about you, but there's been an observation in my neighborhood, in the sense that yes, we have partial lockdown, so lockdown is lifted, but I don't see that many people. I still don't see that many people out. I find that my neighborhood, especially on Mondays, it's extremely quiet. It's almost as though the Monday has become the weekend. Are you experiencing the same? Are you noticing the same things? It'll be good to know what you're observing in your area. I would have thought lockdown has partially lifted, that we would all get out there safely, of course, to our various post responsibilities. Obviously, some of them no longer exist, but even just to get out, maybe to the local park or something. But I just observed that the whole area was somewhat quiet. I noticed the same thing this Monday too, and I just I was just wondering what is going on. Am I the only one seeing it? Are you seeing the same thing? So back to Facebook, and Lady Yemi says churches are good because most of them have their online services. But I think if we can afford not to go out in groups or in social event situations, it will be better. That's so true. But then I don't think we're allowed to have parties. We're still having restrictions, for instance, for funerals, because I think the nightclubs, government says that they're still trying to work out the measures for the nightclubs to be able to open, because those are, they afford you closer proximities and all of that. So are you feeling that? Um, Actually, let me ask this question. One of the other questions that's been popping in my head, so much so recently, I've been asking myself this. If we announced, for instance, the number of people who died from the flu on a regular basis, how would we react? How would we take it? Because, the numbers there, we're told COVID is like flu symptoms. That, there's been so much on this, and I really don't want to dwell on it per se, but I'm just speaking about it just as a coping mechanism, just as saying, okay, well, this is not the only, the most terrible thing that's happened to mankind. There are other diseases that we have. There are other things that we're faced with that we're having to deal with. Obviously, that's all taking a back seat now, and COVID is premier at the moment. But even with that, um, do we still maintain the level of anxiety where COVID is concerned? Or is it possible that we can deal with it a lot easier? I know that, with other diseases or infections and what have you, when it happens to that individual that it is happening to, and that individual may or may not lose their jobs, subject to, the impact. Naturally, with COVID, it's been worldwide. It's a pandemic, so the spread has gone beyond the virus itself. The spread has attacked our well-being, has attacked, how we make our money, has attacked our businesses, has attacked everything that we've ever known. So naturally, that has a much, the effect of the COVID is so different. But regardless, you know, I'm asking this question to do with our mental health. How are we coping with it? And I am going to bring somebody in to kind of, for us to discuss the likely impact of all the different aspects of the impact of COVID, and the different levels that we see, because obviously it's affecting our family dynamics in so many different ways. Whether it's the family that their jobs have gone, whether it's the family where they're having to reconstruct how they do life. That means, especially at the moment where maybe the children can no longer return to school. And then, of course, there is there is a group within our society who have not been able to shut down quite like most of us have. And those are our healthcare workers. They have been on the front line, looking after, the nation, as it were. For them, shut down did not. They couldn't stay at home like the rest of us did. Shut down meant more work. Shut down meant more hours. So, it'd be interesting to know how they are coping, and especially now that there's another threat looming. Where are we at? Io says people are out and about a lot more in my area. Oh, great! I've been quite surprised at it, actually, how busy the roads and streets are. That's really good to know that, at least there are some parts where people are just getting on with it. It's, for me, I like it when I step out and I see more people. When I sort of, pull my blinds and I the place I can hear a pin drop, I'm just like, has there been rapture? Did I miss something? So it's good to know that, people are still actually functioning. Akim Bawale Tunde says 3 services is visible. We just cut out unnecessary items from our program. Oh, okay. Thank you, sir. So for your church, you've just taken out some things that didn't need to happen. But are you thinking, though, I don't know if your church were doing online services, because I know that some pastors felt that the internet was the devil. And they've now discovered that the internet really needed to be their friend. So is your church one of those churches where you were already on the internet? So, it was quite easy to make that transition. Or were you so affected because, you just didn't see, you didn't consider the internet so friendly as well? It'd be good to know, because I do know, I've had conversations with, some people who felt the internet is the devil and, shut it down, go away from it, you can't do that. But we have seen the usefulness, how we've all been so connected. That doesn't mean to say that I'm saying the internet is wonderful, because it has its good and its bad. So it all depends on what it connects you for. If it's connecting you for the good, fantastic. If it's connecting you for not so good, then we have issues. But guess what, people? Guess what I have noticed recently? Before now, we were all concerned about staring at our computer screens and the effect of that on our sight. And I keep wondering, how comes we're no longer having that conversation? How comes we're no longer talking about the fact that the computer screen, that once upon a time was damaging our sights? I don't know about you. Have you experienced that? Or do you have some kind of protection? Because I would imagine that if the computer screen is still emitting the dangerous rays, as it were, that a lot of us are going to suffer. Our sights are going to get worse, or we're going to be impacted by that. Are you thinking about the same thing? And something else that I also noticed during the whole COVID fiasco was that everybody's talking about, the fact that we must have this vaccine. This vaccine must come in, and without it, we effectively can't function. That's what it sounds like. Nobody's talking about the in between. Nobody's telling us anymore about the fact that, I don't know about you, but I do recall that before now, the conversation about our 5 a day, there were adverts reminding us that we must all have our 5 a day. Adverts that reminded us that our children must always have their 5 a day, and just how important it was so that we can build our immune system. Nobody talks about what we need to do in the in between for a better health. I'm concerned about that because I'm not sure that the vaccine at this time, when we're told is going to be done so quickly, we're told is going to not only it's being produced, but it's not going to have the same testing period that standard vaccine production will have. So taking it, some say, will be dangerous. So in light of that, isn't there an in-between? Isn't there something else that we can do to look after our health? And can everybody take that vaccine? Because some may be allergic to it. Some may, struggle with it. Some may have underlying health conditions as well that may not permit them to be able to take the vaccine. So I really want to know what your thoughts are on the whole vaccine situation. Um, um, so what are you thinking about that? So I'll go back to my comments again. I'm just going to go back to my comments, and I'm so grateful to all of you that are joining, that have joined in, that are watching, and that are sending you your thoughts and your comments on this. I really appreciate it. I always come back and says, I don't know if I like it though. I hear you. I don't know if I like it. If I like it though, as it seems that people have forgotten the COVID, still that COVID still date. I see. I hear you on that part though. It's serious because we're just all moving about. But you know what I think it is though, Ayo. I was just sharing earlier today with one of my friends. I said, I just saw my next door neighbor. She had moved in just prior to COVID, and I'd never met her. I've seen her coming and going, and so I was putting the bin out one day, and she also popped out at the same time. So as she popped out, we were both out there dropping things at the bin, but I just reached out and shook her hand without thinking. And immediately after I did that, I was like, oh my goodness, whoops, oops, I'm sorry. We had a chat and all of that. I went back into my house. She went, I'm sure she would, washed her hand. But it was afterwards that I just thought, I just reacted as you would do normally. So I suspect that everybody is having it, they're just reacting, just sort of whoosh, and then remembering that, no, we're supposed to stand apart. We're not supposed to, come as close as we are coming. So I hear what you're saying. It's just normal human reaction, I think. And I think once after it's happened, we just all sort of go, oops, should I have done that? And the afterthought of it all becomes, oh dear, what have I done? But I guess it would take us some time for us all to get used to living like that. Seeing those who are our friends, or just going down the street and just not being able to have that interaction, I suspect will we're not going to be able to do it at a snap of a finger just like that. So, but stay with me. I'm not gone anywhere yet. I understand I'm just going to take a quick break, so I'll be right back. I'm back, and thank you for staying with me. That was a quick one, right? All of 23 seconds, I think. Anyway, so I'm still back, and we're still talking about this whole situation and what is happening at the moment. But for this part of this last part of the program, I really want to hear your thoughts on how do we go forward. Yes, the lockdown situation is serious. We've had COVID, George Floyd, and the Black Lives Matters protest. I really want to know from you guys what we should be doing now going forward. I see a lot of people say, what's the plan? Yes, we're all out there protesting, but what's the plan? Some statues have come down, but what do we do next? The MP David Laming has been fighting hard in the Houses of Parliament to have his voice heard, to get the government and the Prime Minister to, at the very least, implement, if not some of his recommendations from the Laming Review from the previous, the David Cameron Conservative government, where he was asked to look into the criminal justice system and the biases that played out there. So he did that and, came up with some recommendations. That's not been implemented. We've had various other reports also that, has been written with a long list of recommendations, and to date, nothing has happened. So I want to know from you guys, what do we do going forward? We just had last weekend, I believe it was on Saturday, we had the whole Black Pound Day where we were to shop within just, let's buy with businesses that are Black owned, and so that we can keep the pound rolling within our communities and amongst within our businesses. So I want to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts going forward on this? Do you think that um, what do we need to do to going forward? I do think personally that, hey, it's not a fight for a day. The protests, we need to maintain pressure, but in what areas do we maintain pressure? In what areas do we keep the fire burning? In what areas they will continue to ask to what do we need to do with government in order to get it going? That's the other thing. Um, Oh, Candy, thank you so much. Candy says, going forward, no vaccines. I'm not sure the government's going to agree with you, Candy. So much money has been spent rather. Accepting our blackness and be positive. I agree. Lamin recommendations looked into education our children about their blackness. I'm asking our children about their blackness. Yes, it did, and also the criminal justice system as well. But what do we do? Going forward, what are you guys thinking? I know there's been a lot of cries about we need to change the education system and the way history is being taught. We've seen CEOs and people, one of the questions, one of the things I put up on my LinkedIn today, I said, a lot of white people are asking, how can I help? What can I do? And for me, I say, number one, just care. That's the first place to start. Just care. And I know that not all white people are racist. Just the same way, not everybody's bad. I'm fully aware of that. But to begin with, I think it's important that you care. And what do I mean by caring? Because that just sounds so vague, because everybody would just say, of course I care. What do you mean I don't care? Of course I care. But I've also said, you know, don't say I don't see color, because you will remember my color when you get to the point of making a decision. So, for instance, if I come for a job, I present my CV, or I turn up, for an interview, or you get to a decision point, you're going to look at the likelihood of being looked at, and the consideration being that, yeah, she sounds great. She's got it all. But then it becomes, we don't quite touch on it, but we just sort of understand in the room that we had a white contender, and it will go to the white contender, not necessarily, and people don't realize that in doing that, you're not doing it on the basis of the fact that the black person was not sufficiently qualified, or that the black person was not going to sufficiently add value to your company, or that the black person was not, didn't know what to do. You did it on the basis of believing that you just did it on the basis of the skin tone, and you didn't really think twice about it, and you would not have realized, for some people, that what you have done constitutes racism. But that's what it is. So when I say care, I'll share an example. A couple of years ago, there was a TV channel that sort of started up, and this channel was intended for they were making programs for the black community, the African community in particular. And it was interesting, the designs and everything that came out, the logos for some of the programs, they were not usable. So I remember in my conversation with the CEO, I said, just tell the designers to think human. Don't think African. And the reason why I said that was because the narrative, produces a negative outlook for Africa and Africans. That when a white person is a designer and is designing and not thinking human, they're just designing something that in their mind is suitable. But for us, it's, we all looked at the designs and was like, what's all this nonsense? Every single one of us who saw it instantly recognized what was at play. So when I say at the point of decision, that's when you're suddenly going to, I will see, whether or not you're racist. So it's important for people to understand. It's not about taking a dig at anyone per se, but it's about understanding how that works. So, for all of us, I know I've also observed that we go through it so much that for a lot of us Black people, we don't want to discuss racism. We don't even want to talk about it. We it's just like, you know what, just leave it. That's how a lot of us feel. But I think that there's an opportunity for us now to openly discuss it, to openly share. I don't know about you, but the first time I realized I was Black, I think I was 14 years old. And I was another story. I was 14 years old, and I lived in the East End. When the London Docklands was being built, and I remember that the London Docklands Corporation, they came to our school and they were telling us about how wonderful it was going to be, how it was going to be all built up. And we were going to have first refusal for jobs and, all of that. So I was one of three girls that were selected to do an interview. So this Guardian reporter came to our school to do this interview. And he did the interview. We all contributed to the interview. But when the interview came out, I hadn't seen it at this point. My friends were the ones that were like, "But Priscilla, I didn't say this. You were the one who said it. But how comes he's saying I said these things when it was you that said it?" Then we'll read to another point. So, I didn't say that. That was you. And what the reporter simply did was to give credit for all what I thought, all of my thoughts in response to his questions. He thought it was best because the other two girls were white. So he just, shared it with the white girls and just sort of said that I agreed. At that age, coming from Africa, because this is long winded, but coming from Africa, we have a different experience of racism to those who were born here and to Americans. I'm not going to go into details of that, but I'll explain this very briefly. When you're growing up in Africa, the fact that you're Black is neither here nor there. That's not the issue. So, having to question why would you have to give credit to somebody else for something that they didn't do? I was just surprised and I was quite amazed by it. But that was the first time I realized I was Black, because that was the only reason why you were now um, giving credit for something. And the only reason why you were giving credit was because of the color of my skin and not necessarily because I didn't know what I was talking about or because I was dumb or because I was incapable. So I welcome this moment where we can all have these conversations freely and we can all, be able to share. I think it's important that we do have these conversations freely, not in a passive aggressive manner, but, calmly, so that we can not only are we unburdening, but I think we're also giving somebody an opportunity to change, giving somebody an opportunity to do what's right. But going forward, because I strongly believe that if governments are not going to back and do the right thing, governments are the ones that are going to make the policies that will prevent institutions from maintaining their racist attitudes and behavior. And if governments are not doing that, then we're not going to have much of a move from where we're at now. So, what are your thoughts? Do you think that we're truly going to have this change, or you're just thinking, nah, it's not going to happen? We've seen all of this before. We're just going to be back here. So, talk to me. What are you thinking? Let me go and see if anybody has shared their. By the way, what was your first experience of being Black? When did you first know you were Black? I know that sounds odd, but it may sound odd, but but honestly, it is it is just what it is. Because that's the first time you kind of wake up to like, oh, is it because I is Black? I know it's the joke that we have joked about in times past, but it's a reality, isn't it? For all of us, for most of us. So when did you first realize that you were Black? When did it become an issue for you? Um, Oh, thank you, Kiki. Kiki Blue Chat says, I love your show. Oh yeah, Kiki, I'm back. I'm back on Facebook. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened there, but I'm back. I've been back for at least the last 20 minutes. I think, technology happens and these things happen. So thank you so much, Kiki, for tuning in. But as I promised, next week, I'm going to have a guest in who's going to be uh, we're going to hear more about what's happening out there, and the effects, and probably what we should be doing. I hope that I'll be able to get some decision makers in the house that are going to also, share with us what we can do and what we should do. I don't think we should let go. I think that we are going to be able to make strides. It may be small to begin with, but for sure those strides are important, and we need to keep at it in order for change to come. So yes, please let us know. Um, let us know what you're thinking, what your thoughts are on that. Oh, 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 oops, sorry about that. So yeah, let us know what you're thinking. But I think my time is up. It's been a real pleasure. And let me thank every single one of you who tuned in and who contributed. Really appreciate that. Next week, I'm looking forward to a great guest who's going to, share with me a little bit more on really the impact on society of on all the things that we're all going through collectively, and hopefully what we should be doing to get better. And I am going to continue to ask the question, are we truly seeing change? Has change come? What do we need to be doing to go forward? So please join me in asking those questions and looking for the answers, because I think it's important. We can't do it in a singular alone, but we can do it together, and together we will have an impact. So, where the PM is thinking about just setting up another commission, I think we should all please remind our local MPs what we would really like to see. We can do that by a letter. Just let your local MP know what you would really like to see, and if you don't want to see another, commission that's just been pulled up, then let's hear that. Let them know so that they can represent, because they are there to represent your views, there to take what you want into Parliament and get that resolved. So don't forget, all of us are contributing just the same way we're all contributing to TV license, but we're not represented on the BBC. We're all contributing to our MPs, we're paying our taxes. So, if we are collectively contributing, don't forget that. Let them work for you. That's what they're there to do. It's only fair that we remind them. Just the same way we're all contributing to our council taxes and various taxes that are levied on us. We're not paying any less. We're probably paying more than some. So I think that we should utilize that. We should reach out to our MPs. We should express our desires, our wants. If you don't want the PM to, set up a new commission, then let's say so to our MPs that you object, you strongly object to it, and you would like him to raise the issue in the House. I think if enough of us are doing that, we will be a great support to David Lammin MP, the Right Honourable David Lammin MP for Tottenham, who has been fighting tirelessly, whether it was for Windrush, whether it's the current situation. We all see him, raising those questions and asking. So let's work with him to make that happen. And on that note, I think I'm going to stop rambling right now. And thank you all once again for joining me. And I'll be back here again next week, Wednesday. So I hope you're going to come back with me. But until then, please take care of yourselves and each other. Stay safe. Thank you. Good night.